PNC.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
This is your 5 o'clock drive with Patrick Johnson.
Holy mackerel!
More news, more interviews, more ECU stories than you can shake a stick at. Hey, stop shaking that stick. This is the Patrick Johnson Show.
Pirates win! Pirates win!
On 94.3 The Game.
Welcome in, everybody. TGIF Friday, we made it. That gets you to the weekend edition of the Patrick Johnson Show. From the Working Man's Beach down at Surf City, Dom Kasolki.
I think we're going to lose.
Producing today's show. We got Chris Hughs coming up, Carolina Preps, last week covering the state baseball championships, of course, which Rose was in and lost in 3 games, and covered the 1A series as well, and another championship for a charter school in 1A baseball. So 8 classifications next year. We'll talk to Chris Hughs about that and talk to him about, where these charter schools stand, and also a look ahead to the football season for high school, which is just a few months away. We'll also talk about some of the things going on around ECU and some of the other sports news and notes that are happening around Eastern North Carolina and beyond in our next segment. But first, we start with an old friend. He is the only ECU pitcher to ever pitch back-to-back no-hitters. The great Jake Jacobs joining us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. Jake, how are you,
What's
buddy?
up, man?
I'm well, man. How are you? I love the vibe behind you. I love what you got going on in there in the old room. It's a good vibe there.
Yeah, a little bit of memorabilia from my oldest son. He's an active member of the United States Air Force, all over the world doing bad things to bad people. Son is in his last year of veterinary school up at The Ohio State University. So I got a little bit of
gosh,
memorabilia in here as well. So I'm just a man locked in his bonus room, ready for Game 3 of the Softball World Series and ready for the Baseball World Series to kick off today. And I will hibernate here all weekend. I have a refrigerator of drinks, and I'm ready for the weekend.
As long as there's some maybe pirate beverages in there, I think you'll be good to go. We'll go down a little memory lane here in a little bit, but you're obviously for years have been involved in the game as an analyst, as a coach and instructor in a lot of ways. So you have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's going on. You know, Cliff Godwin tweets yesterday that the system is broken. You have pirate players getting in. You have negotiations that are actively going on to keep players from getting in the portal. You have the allegations of schools out of the SEC tampering. Hell, you even have in football SEC coaches saying other schools are tampering halftime of games. I mean, now, had this existed when you were around, the back-to-back no-hitters, they'd have been scooping you up left and right?
Well, it's easy to be sarcastic about it and maybe be a little bit flippant about it, but the reality is, Patrick, you're not wrong. I think a lot of the mentality, particularly in your smaller and mid-major schools now, is, I'm playing for the purpose of kind of being re-recruited, if you will, and I sent a couple of sarcastic texts to some friends of mine as the regionals got ready to get set last week. When they announced the field, I was sarcastically saying, well, I guess it's 16 showcases across the country in which the bigger schools get to go showcase the talent of the smaller schools and therefore recruit, right? So it is unfortunate, the state of college baseball right now, and realistically, it's unfortunate, the state of baseball in general, all the way up to the major league level. There are issues that are being triggered, all the way down in the system. But what I will say is, Cliff Godwin's exactly right. The system is badly broken, and not just in baseball; it's broken in all the sports. And at some point you got to wonder when will sanity come back into play, and somebody will step in and fix this thing.
There was a lot of talk, and we discussed it earlier in the week on the program here about, is this maybe the last year that you would see a situation like Murray State go to the Supers, or even UTSA advance to the Supers. And I think there's a lot of things with baseball that are the, um, you know, that you can't take account for. Obviously, talent helps. It's the Jimmies and the Joes. We certainly know that. Seems like it would be easier to maybe stack talent in basketball than baseball, for example. And so, based on that, I do think that maybe baseball, college baseball, has a little longer shelf life as far as being able to have a lot of these kind of magic moments where you have teams that win a regional and they're not necessarily the number one seeder out of the SEC necessarily. Do you agree with that, or do you think we're closer to it being like we had in the college basketball tournament this year, where it's going to be chalk all the way through henceforth?
Well, I think when you talk about basketball, it's easier just because it's a numbers game, right? You just quite honestly, you don't have to have as many players. Baseball, it's harder to do that, right? You've got to put together a roster of 26, 28 players that can contribute and do their job. And listen, Patrick, you know, it's the romantic thing about baseball, right? Talent doesn't necessarily equal wins at the championship level in baseball. It helps. You've got to have talent, but when talent meets talent, there's another factor that comes into play, and that's things like heart and character and determination and mental toughness. And quite honestly, I think what we saw in the regionals was an example of talent doesn't always win on the baseball field. You know, the Murray States are a great example, but Coastal Carolina is a great example of that. Coastal
Yeah.
Carolina's program is a good example of that. East Carolina's program is a good example of that. That's the one thing that's truly great about baseball, man, is that if you look at any great baseball team, yes, there was some talent. But then there's that core group of guys that played on that team that were the role guys that understood what their role was. They understood, what they had to do to help the team win. And when all 9 of those guys, and really let's say all 8 of those guys plus the 4 or 5 or 6 pitching pieces that get implemented during the course of a season or regional World Series, whatever you want to call it, right? But when those 12, 13, 14 guys kind of all put it together, that's what's romantic about baseball. And you used to get that in basketball back when teams played defense, right? You had guys that were defensive specialists that made a difference on the team. You had guys that were ball handlers that were the quarterbacks on the floor that ran the team. We saw, some great teams that weren't necessarily 5 of the most talented guys. They had 1 or 2, but then they had these other guys with them. I think we're still there in baseball. Um, and 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 I think what's really frustrating to the baseball coaches I talk to these days, and when you read and watch things that baseball coaches say, you know, at heart, most baseball coaches at the Division I level, especially, and even and certainly at the junior college level, most baseball coaches are men that enjoy developing and molding young men and building teams, right? I you know I can't speak for Cliff, but what I would say, my impression of a Cliff Godwin is he's a guy that likes to bring young men in, develop them, build them, mold them, teach them how to play the game the right way, and then see them flourish through a system. You know, Cliff, I wouldn't imagine he's a guy that wants to go out and utilize the portal and bring in one and done kind of guys. I mean, from a true baseball lover, it's not as much fun. You want to develop guys, you want to build guys, you want to see them develop into players, and then yes, move on to the next level. And I think right now college baseball, that's what's at risk, is we're losing a lot of the developmental opportunities. And Patrick, I'll tell you, when that's the case, what you're losing is a lot of great baseball players.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you this, there's a lot of guys that play Division I baseball and a lot of guys that play professional baseballs that aren't supposed to be there. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I wasn't supposed to be at East Carolina. I certainly wasn't supposed to be a professional player, but I did it for 4.5 years. I played with some of the best players in the country, right? Talent-wise, I didn't deserve to be on the field with those guys. But I can tell you what, I could compete with them. And, my job at the end of the day as a pro player, my job was to make the guys I played against better.
Yeah.
So, I took that role very serious. And I know that Cliff Godwin did. If anybody remembers Cliff Godwin as a player, not the most talented guy on the field. Just wasn't,
Yeah.
right? But I
And
can
he'll
tell you
tell you
what,
that.
flat get after your tail on the field, and if he wasn't getting after the guy across from him, he was getting after his own teammates, making them better.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're at risk of losing now. We're at risk of losing those guys because coaches are chasing what I call the one percenters, the guy that God just looked at him and went, "You get to be good at baseball, right? You get to throw 95. You get to run a 6.6. Those are the guys that I think there's a lot of focus around now, and that's unfortunate because baseball's full of a lot of really good fundamental players, and they're the guys that are fun to watch play baseball, in my opinion.
The great Jake Jacobs, ECU pitcher extraordinaire, on with us here. All right, Jake, let me ask you. This year, Cliff Godwin passes your coach and his old coach, Gary Overton, for the all-time wins list. Of course, you and I know Coach O. You know him really well. I know him pretty well. Got to spend a weekend with him in Tampa calling the final series of the regular season for radio, and that was enjoyable because Coach O's got such great insight and knowledge of the sport. So, look, Cliff's won a lot of games, but you look at Coach O. I often talk about this with Mully. I think you and I have talked about it before. I mean, Coach O was going to the big dog regionals. We had 8 teams, and before
You know,
baseball evolved, I mean, those were some knockdown, drag-out deals.
yeah, they really were, and I was fortunate to play in a few of those, and it's a big difference. I remember us rolling into Gainesville, Florida, back when I was at East Carolina, and we're the 8th seed playing the number 1 seed, and I think our first game there that night we didn't take the field till about 10:30 p.m. But back then, if you lost and got in the losers bracket, but you're talking about a war to get back in the winners bracket. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
about you needed 20 pitchers to get back to where you could play anywhere close to the finals of a regional. And so I like the new format. I think the format today is much better. But the 18 regionals, but woo, what a tail kicking those were. But back to Coach O. So I don't know if any of you saw, there was a clip, and I'm not sure. I'm not politically correct when it comes to all the different media outlets, Patrick, but I did that Coach O was interviewing Cliff. Because obviously, Gary is, doing some of the broadcast stuff now, and there was a very genuine moment in which Coach O recognized Cliff Godwin and the accomplishments that he's had and the things that he's done as the ECU baseball coach. And it was a very touching moment. Cliff got emotional. I think Gary was Coach O was emotional. It was an unbelievable touching moment, and in which you had really one generational coach recognizing kind of this generation's coach. Um, what a wonderful moment that was for East Carolina, for the East Carolina baseball program. Listen, I have a lot of respect for Gary Overton. He ran this program when it used to operate on a shoestring budget. The majority of our players were local players, local talent. Um, we played local schools back then. We didn't travel all across the country and do the things we do now. And Gary was Coach O was the foundation of which this program was built on. Now, of course, he took over for Hal Baird, who was a great coach as well, who also was a foundational builder, and there were some great coaches before him as well. But Coach O did a lot of wonderful things for East Carolina, and then I don't know if people recognize enough the fact that Coach O, stepped down from the baseball coach and then became an integral part of the athletic department. And he's continued to support and be a part of East Carolina athletics and East Carolina University. I mean, the man is truly an ambassador for East Carolina University, and I can't say enough positive things about him. Obviously, he's responsible for giving me the opportunity to play here at East Carolina, and something that I'm forever grateful for. And I'm really proud to be an ECU Pirate, and I'm proud to say that I played for Gary, and I'm really proud to say that I was doing the play-by-play and was a part of the ECU program when Cliff came in, and I'm really glad he's the coach now.
Jake, do you remember the recruiting? What was recruiting like back there out of Southern Wayne, playing for old Doyle Whitfield, and Coach O
Yeah.
came in and recruited you?
Well, it wasn't like today where guys were, committing as freshmen and sophomores. I literally was a senior, had not committed to anywhere, had a few recruiting visits. I'd gone to, I went to NC State, went to Clemson. UNCW was talking to me pretty heavy. Really thought I was going to go to UNCW. And then kind of at the last minute, East Carolina kind of got into the fray, and I came up and did a visit. Obviously was impressed with Gary. Really liked Billy Best, the assistant coach then.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Anyway, I ended up committing to East Carolina, and I was very fortunate. There was a left-handed pitcher out of Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, a young man named Brian Barnes. Brian ended up signing with Clemson University and went on to set a bunch of ACC records for strikeouts and everything else. But Brian Barnes was kind of the hot recruit in Eastern North Carolina, and East Carolina had obviously been recruiting him pretty hard, as had all the other schools. And when he committed to Clemson, it opened up an avenue for me to have an opportunity in East Carolina. So really, really happy with really happy with that decision, and really just, to be quite honest, fortunate to have that opportunity to play here. I was not a dominant player by any means, and came here and was able to develop, and felt like I had a really nice career at ECU. I won't lie, I still peek at the media guide every year, and I get to see my name.
The great Jake Jacobs, one of the all-timers at ECU baseball. All right, so you throw back-to-back no-hitters, and that's never happened at ECU since you did it. And I don't know the years and all that, and I can't give you details. I just know Jake pitched back-to-back no-hitters. Give me the best story from those 2 days.
Well, I think the first one is the first part of that story is my father was there for both of them, and was my mom and dad, and they were able to watch those games, and my dad was incredibly proud of my accomplishments at East Carolina. And I lost my dad 2 summers ago, and 94 years old, and he was a former player, and was really was obviously was my mentor, and anyway, he was there, and was a big part of that experience. So that's the first thing I always think about. The second piece, and I may get somebody in trouble here. As a matter of fact, I won't mention his name, but there was an umpire that second game. And by the way, I was fortunate. These were 7-inning games, because back then we played a lot of doubleheaders and that kind of stuff. And anyway, the umpire in that game, and I didn't know this at the time. I learned it actually sometime afterwards. But the umpire in that game, when I got to the 7th inning and we got 2 outs, I learned later that when my catcher squatted down, the umpire actually had his kind of had his foot where my catcher squatted down. And so as my catcher moved out over the outside half of the plate, let's just say that the umpire had a very generous outside corner. And so when we figured that, when we learned that, I don't think the last hitter in that game could have hit that pitch with a boat paddle. We were definitely working off the outside corner. So call it what you will, but it was a liberal strike zone with 2 outs in the back half of that, and anyway, it was a wonderful experience, and I'll be the first to admit, East Carolina plays a different level of baseball now. They play a different schedule. They play a different level of talent. But that was what it was at the time. We my job as a player was to pitch against whoever we lined up against, and I controlled what I could control, which is to go out and do my best. And I played for some really good teams at East Carolina, Patrick. We were very good back then, and we had some really good players. And so it was a lot of fun, and it was good to do that with the guys that I played with. It was very special.
Jakester, great to talk to you. We'll talk to you again soon, and we're gonna get it. I'm gonna do everything I can. I want to get it where the Jakester and I get to work together next year in some booths. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Hey,
all right,
Patrick,
buddy.
really, I'd be remiss if I didn't. So today, 40 years ago today, Southern Wayne High School won the state 4A championship with yours truly out the game on the mound. And so big shout out to all of my Southern Wayne teammates. We're getting together at the end of this month to celebrate that accomplishment. So all morning this morning, I've been part of a group text with all of my old high school teammates. We're all still alive. Nobody has passed away yet. And so we'll be getting together to celebrate our 40th year of our state championship. It's quite an accomplishment, and to this day, I'm very
really
proud.
Cool.
Yep, a lot of fun.
All right, buddy. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Give those guys our best. Thank you, man. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Patrick. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. The great Jake Jacobs with us here on the PJ Show. All right, we're hitting the break, and when we come back, Dom and I will catch you up on a few things going into the weekend, and then we'll have for you Chris Hughs from CarolinaPreps.com. Looking forward to having Chris on the program to talk about high school athletics. All right, PJ Show coming up.
Hey, it's Jim Wells again with Wells Roofing and Gutters here in the beautiful community of Lindale, Bedford. At Wells Roofing and Gutters, we believe in quality first, and that's why we use CertainTeed shingles, which are manufactured in Oxford, North Carolina, a local company. In the event you ever do have a claim or a problem with your roof system, they're local and they come and take care of us in a timely manner. We could leave off some accessories and we could certainly save money, but we believe at Wells Roofing and Gutters in installing the correct way per manufacturer requirements, and we warranty your roof both in-house and also with our supplier, who is CertainTeed. For a job well done, no shortcuts taken, and a good quality job on your home, give us a call today, 252-227-8403. We also offer financing, 12 months, no interest, no payments.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human, about creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leyva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
We're back to the show.
I missed you. We all missed you. Did you miss him?
This is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Jacobs for being with us here. We'll get Chris Hughs in a few minutes. Dom Kasulki
I think we're going to lose.
producing today's show. Dom, we got you for the vast video audience. A shot of you. There he is.
Oh,
Look
yes,
at
we
that
do.
young fella. A young Howard Stern is Dom Kasulki there.
Yep.
Did the River Bandits play last night? When I talked to you yesterday, you were at the ballpark in Tarboro. Did you guys get your game off last night?
Yes, we did. Surprisingly, the rain was pouring down for really most of the game. So I was surprised that the game ended up playing all the way through, playing rival Edenton Steamers, winning 11-5. So a big win for them.
Did Parker Bird get any at-bats?
He did. He started. Batted sixth in the lineup, had 4 at-bats, 2 RBI groundouts. So,
Okay. Parker playing for Edenton this year, the Edenton Steamers. So that's a cool thing. That had to be cool to call a game that Parker was playing in. You know, of all the games that he has appeared in early in the season, I usually have a conflict and I'm not doing them.
Yep.
Or they're on the pass-through stream for ESPN Plus, so I don't necessarily get a chance to call the Parker Bird histrionics. But that had to be pretty cool for you to do that.
It was fun. He played on New Bern last year, so I had called a couple of games from the past year when Tarboro was playing New Bern. So second year of watching him play, and it's really fun.
So we've got hockey continuing tonight. Dom will have an update. He'll also tell you about what was a crazy comeback from the Pacers last night against OKC. Last I saw, it was something like a 12-point game at halftime. And I just assumed OKC rolled, but not the case.
Have it in the update, but 20 first-half turnovers, and you end up winning the game is pretty crazy.
Yeah, Pacers with a heck of a comeback. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, this may not be a very well-watched, but, I mean, that was a heck of a game. That might spur some interest in people watching out on the NBA Finals. We also have, going on now, it's starting tomorrow, the Super Regionals taking place. So some teams of interest involved in that. In-state, down south, and obviously in conference as it pertains to East Carolina. So that's going on. Congrats to all the graduates this weekend. They're all doing what they're doing with all of the Pitt County schools graduating at Williams Arena Minges Coliseum. So there is a lot going on today and this afternoon, this evening, and then all day tomorrow with South Central, Aiden Grifton, North Pitt, and I'm forgetting one. South Central, Aiden Grifton, North Pitt, Farmville graduating tomorrow. Yeah, how can I forget Farmville? All right, I'm trying to connect something here, Dom, from the Always Anonymous text line. I know. From the Always Anonymous text line, I got this yesterday. Apparently, there's an AI program that people are using out there, and this was sent to me. Let me see if I can find it. This is Donald Trump. With a message to listeners of the Patrick Johnson Show and just the good people of Eastern North Carolina.
The Patrick Johnson Show is the biggest and best sports talk show on radio. It's really a beautiful thing, like my big, beautiful bill. You can listen to the P-Man on 94.3 FM, The Game, weekdays at 5 p.m.
What do you think? It's a message from the Donald via AI.
AI's getting good, man. It's getting scary.
I saw a reel about AI that talked about you need to pass this on to your uncle who believes everything. I have relatives I think believe a lot of the AI.
Yeah, I
heck,
agree.
maybe the Big Hen believes a lot of the AI, but it's all put out there, and this stuff's really, really, really good.
I think my mom's probably listening, but she sent me something about I think it was Jaylen Brown on the Celtics, and it was an AI thing about how he helped and donated like $700 million or some crazy thing, and she sent it to me, and I'm like, I don't think that's real. It was just a bunch of AI pictures. I didn't believe it.
That's a lot of money. We know Dom's mom is listening because Dom is on for no other reason.
No, she listens even without.
Oh, she's become a fan? She's become a P1 possibly?
Maybe not an everyday listener. I mean, maybe she's just, hopping in because she doesn't know if I'm on it. But, I mean, she does listen, and she tells me about some of the stuff you say if I'm mentioned.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, you are mentioned occasionally.
I think we're going to lose.
You're mentioned. That great moment in PJ
you
Show
love
history.
playing that.
That's your soundbite.
That was
That's
Pirate
your drop.
Game Day Countdown. That wasn't even PJ Show.
Well, it was tangentially the show because we did a PJ show leading in.
That's true.
Hey, coming up next week, next Tuesday, and Dom will tell you about the tournament itself coming up in our update here in a second. The Big Rock will be happening, but we've got our show going to be from the Morehead City waterfront, originating from the Morehead City waterfront on Tuesday, as we'll be at King Mackerel's there by Big Rock Landing doing the Patrick Johnson show. So hope to see a lot of folks down in Morehead City if they're down that day. If not, you can listen, of course, here on 94.3 The Game, 94.3thegame.com, or the IBX Media app, as we'll be on live from 5 to 6. Also, on Monday and Tuesday, I'll be hosting Talk of the Town. The Big N is out of town, so I'll be in the studio both of those days. And the great Benny Hardy will be hosting with me on our News Talk properties. And then coming up on Monday, in the studio for the PJ show, and Shane Winkler is scheduled to be our guest, ECU softball coach. We'll talk to him about Game 3 of the Women's College World Series in softball tonight. Texas Tech tied it up at a game apiece last night, and we will also talk about the state of the Pirate program and just the state of college athletics as well. So all of that with Shane Winkler coming up on Monday. All right, let's go now to Dom Kasulki, ahead of Chris Hughs joining us from CarolinaPreps.com. Here is Dom with a 94.3 The Game Sports Update and Pirate Report. Dom?
Thank you, Patrick. Your Pirate Report and Sports Update. Big Rock Blue Marlin Week getting underway with the KWLA Lady Angler Tournament tomorrow, and it's one of the largest ladies-only events in the world. The one-day billfish release tournament set the stage for next week's annual Big Rock Fishing Tournament. There were over 300 boats in last year's event and a prize pool of $7.5 million. The winning catch was 516 pounds last year. Here's Tommy Bennett with the Big Rock on last year's event.
The winner of the tournament is going to be the boat that catches the largest blue marlin. And they're going to win, if they're in all of the levels, as we said last year, the winner won $1.8 million. There's even a $20,000 entry fee level that is winner take all. So the teams that are in that one category, they're competing against the other teams that are in that category. So you could finish 5th in the tournament, but 1st in that division and make a lot of money.
The Patrick Johnson Show will be at Big Rock Landing next Tuesday, broadcasting live here on 94.3 The Game and the IBX Media app. The Super Regional round of the NCAA baseball tournament will be held this weekend. The best-of-3 series will determine which 8 teams make it to the Men's College World Series in Omaha. UNC and Arizona begin play in the Chapel Hill Regional at noon. Auburn and Coastal Carolina play tonight, and Saturday, Duke will host Murray State and UCLA plays UTSA. In the NBA, Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals, and we got another thrilling ending to add to the Pacers' fourth quarter resume. Pacers end the game on a 12-2 run, finishing with a Tyrese Halliburton 22-footer for the win. Here's Halliburton on the team and not giving up.
We just stuck with it. Andrew was huge down the stretch, and we got a big stop there, and they got a lot of confidence in me to make that shot.
Pacers had 20 turnovers at half and cleaned it up in the second with only 5, a big reason for their Game 1 victory. Game 2 in Oklahoma City on Sunday at 8. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup tonight at 8 between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers in Game 1 had a 3-1 lead, and the Oilers fought back to send the game to OT. With 31 seconds remaining, the Oilers capitalized on a power play to win it. Oilers are the favorite in Game 2. Aaron Rodgers finally gave up on his hope of signing with the Vikings and broke NFL news by signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday evening. They have their QB1. That's it for your sports update and Pirate Report. Let's send it to a quick break on the Patrick Johnson Show and 94.3 The Game.
Hey, it's Jim Wells again with Wells Roofing and Gutters here in the beautiful community of Lindale, Bedford. At Wells Roofing and Gutters, we believe in quality first. And that's why we use CertainTeed shingles, which are manufactured in Oxford, North Carolina, a local company. In the event you ever do have a claim or a problem with your roof system, they're local and they come and take care of us in a timely manner. We could leave off some accessories and we could certainly save money, but we believe at Wells Roofing and Gutters in installing the correct way per manufacturer requirements, and we warranty your roof both in-house and also with our supplier who is certainteed. For a job Wells done, no shortcuts taken, and a good quality job on your home, give us a call today, 252-227-8403. We also offer financing, 12 months, no interest, no payments.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human, about creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked to order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Beep, beep. Move over, Buttercup. We're back to the show.
They're back! And I love them!
This is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
This time last week, sitting in the Ting Ballpark in Holly Springs, we're in a weather delay ahead of Game 1 of the 3A series between Rose and North Lincoln, that North Lincoln eventually won in 3 games, Rose winning that game last Friday in quite improbable fashion. And then we had the 1A series, and that was for the NFHS network people, and that was Perquimans, and it was Uwharrie Charter. Uwharrie Charter winning a third consecutive 1A baseball championship. So, 8 classifications coming up next year, a brave new world. We're going to talk about it with our next guest, the great Chris Hughs of Carolina Preps. Chris also doing some cool stuff. He joins us from the Chris Hughs Empire World Headquarters out in the Kannapolis area. It's in Kannapolis. You're in K-Town, aren't you? You're in the other K-Town, right?
Yes, correct. Kannapolis.
Okay, that's right.
Home of Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah. You were, yes, the home of Dale Earnhardt. All right. Great to have you, Chris. You look great. I hope you're doing well. Before we get into all of this 8 classifications and solving the world's problems with it, you are Carolina Preps is having a little bit of a rebirth here in the offseason, and you're doing some really cool things. You talked with David Gentry from Murphy High School recently. He, of course, coached Annie Kate Dalton, who played softball at ECU for the last 2 years. She actually kicked for a couple of his state championship teams. But anyway, you've had that occasion, and you've hit about 100 high schools so far.
Yeah,
tell us what's going on with Carolina Preps and what you're doing now with it.
Well, P-Man, as always, I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun over the multiple decades, I guess, by now that we've been doing these things together, and it's always good to be on your show. And yeah, I guess you could say we're having a little bit of a renaissance at Carolina Preps, just kind of I don't want to say that we were a casualty to some of the things that happened, some of the fallout from the COVID, but we definitely took a little bit of a step backwards. I did as well, probably both personally, professionally, but kind of got everything in the order that I feel it should be, and we're having a great kickoff to this 2025 season. Um, Covering high schools, I think it is over 100 since March 1st that I've been to, and
Wow.
sat down face to face with some coaches, doing the best I can, kind of where the rubber meets the road, to learn about all the teams I can coming into the season.
Well, you're one of the best when it comes to that. You're certainly a treasure trove of knowledge, and nobody knows the statewide scene as well as Chris does. CarolinaPreps.com, still the website, and go there. Chris has some premium content that you'll want to sign up for if you're a fan of any high school in the state, any conference in the state, interested in your rivals, recruiting, the whole nine. Chris has got that at CarolinaPreps.com. All right, so the big talk, the last couple of state championship things I've been involved in has been, the deal, how to deal with the charter schools, the parochial schools at all. And part of the charter really spurs the conversation. 58 charter schools are now members of the High School Athletic Association, which is really, really hard to believe. So we're going to 8 classifications. Does that 8 classification spread address the situation with someone like a Cardinal Gibbons, who's been so dominant in volleyball and soccer? And does it address the situation, and to a degree, football? And does it address the situation with, all of these charter schools in an ample way, in your opinion?
I'll say yes and no. I'm not a big fan of going so drastically to the number 8, the 8 number for classifications. But I understand the rationale that Q Tucker, the president of the NCHSAA, and the board, that they kind of put forth in giving the state room to grow. So I understand, you mentioned the 58 charter schools. That's probably on the low end or whatever, and as to what I think it could be one day. I just think that number grow. Does it solve the issue? I'm not sure. I'm still one, especially at maybe some of the non-football sports, for example, to where there should have been some kind of a multiplier to maybe put some of these charter schools up a class at the very least, given the lack of limitations to their boundaries and some things like that. And that's just to kind of make it a little bit more of a level playing field, for the Spring Creeks of the world, or the South Lenores, or some of the schools that they've just got what they've got in regards to the number. Whereas, you mentioned URA Charter in the break, they've got guys playing on their baseball team from like 4 or 5 different counties. And I definitely don't think it's apples to apples.
No, and that URA Charter, Perquimans gave him a hell of a run, but URA Charter just had more depth, especially on the mound. And that's what resulted in their championships. And then I've seen the Island Mountain Charter team win in volleyball, because they've got players from all around. There was a lot of discussion about 2 things when they went to the 8 classifications. And that was, kind of a super whatever at the top in what would be the top classification. That would mainly be Charlotte, Raleigh, maybe a little bit of Greensboro area, Triad area. And then the charters having their own classification in a sense. Are you surprised that wasn't the case, that the charters didn't wind up with their own, if you will, classification?
Well, conversations that I had for a long time, and we're talking about years and years, even in the past, with some of the NCHSA leaders, was that charter schools were never, I don't think they really truly envisioned putting charters in their own class, because you're just telling the charters, hey, you're different. You don't belong with us big boys and the traditional public schools. And I think that, whether it's the legislatures that got involved or whatever, I think that they didn't want to, let's just use the word segregate them and put them in their little quarantined area and let them play amongst themselves. I think that those schools felt like they deserved to be on the same playing field with the bigger schools, the more traditional schools. So I'm not so sure. I'm not really surprised that they ended up with the masses, because I think that was the plan all along.
The great Chris Hughes from CarolinaPreps.com joining us here. I can understand the 8 classifications for football because basically we had subdivided 4A playoffs. I thought that did create a lot of excitement. And by and large, I think you never had somebody who was a state champion that you're like, well, there's no way they could be a competitor. I'm probably not thinking of an example right off the top of my head, but it seemed like that the teams that were playing in this, having called a lot of these subdivided championship games of football in the past, that they belong, that they were really good teams. I mean, I don't think the blowouts are any different. There might be more of them because of you have 8 games versus 4 games. We've had blowouts in the 4-game format as well. So we've had thrilling games in both formats as well. So I could get behind that. I think the other sports, though, it almost seems like the 8 is too much.
Yes.
How are you gonna find venues? Maybe find a basketball venue that'll host this because it's indoor, it's gym, it's a gym, it's kind of a controlled environment. But you got to find volleyball, you got to find lacrosse, you got to find soccer, you got to find the diamond sports in the spring. Softball might be a little easier because the campuses will be open, the college campuses. But for baseball, there's not a lot of options with minor league and college stadiums being occupied.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, I think that in this world that we live in, most people only really see, how football is affected by realignments, and to some degree, basketball and baseball kind of giving the big 3 financial generating sports. But you're right. You start talking about the other sports, whether it be the softball or some of the more Olympic sports or some of the lesser known sports, it is going to be a challenge coming up with championship venues, not only just for the place to host the games, but the cost that it takes to put on the venues. Now some of the constraints the legislature put on with the High School Athletic Association and being able to go out and fundraise to do some of that stuff. So I do think it's going to be a challenge going to 8. I always thought today was a little bit too many. I thought in a perfect world 6 was probably the best number. But I want to go back to the premise. They said they want to give the state room to grow, so we'll just go with that.
The great Chris Hughes with us here from Carolina Preps. All right, got a few more minutes. Let me ask you right now, as you look at it now, who are some of the teams in football to be keeping an eye out on as we, go throughout the offseason and into next year? Kind of who are some early teams you think can make some noise around the state?
Sure. Well, I'll do a very quick rundown from 8A to 1A. 8A is probably a 5 or 6 man, 6-team race. Rolesville, right there in Wake County, I think they're the top of the line. They're the cream rising to the top when it comes to 8A football. They're going to be a tough out. And then you got a trio of some really good teams in Charlotte with Mallard Creek, Huff, West Charlotte, who won the 3A championship this year. So I think that 8A is going to be competitive. Millbrook, Jordan, there's some teams that could sneak in there. 7A, though, is where it really gets real because remember, 8A is just 32 teams. 7A on down is a much tougher, more compact brand of football. I think that you got some of the really good teams. You already see Grimsley and Weddington atop that 7A class. And good gosh, look at the success they've had over the past 7-8 years. You've mentioned Cardinal Gibbons. I think they'll be one of the factors in 7A. Richmond County, East Forsyth, Reagan, maybe even a Clayton and a Cleveland moving down to the 6A. You got 71st, who they've been in a lot of state championships here in recent years. They just haven't won one here since 2008. They're going to be in the mix. A newcomer to that big-time stage is going to be Ashbrook. And don't look now, but I know right there in Greenville, I think Coach Will Bland and J.H. Rose, I think they are absolutely a bona fide in the mix team to compete to go to the state championship game. They had that surge last year, came on strong, beat Northern Nash, who also is going to be a big timer in that 5A or 6A. 5A, Hickory, Crest, Monroe, there's kind of the ones you're looking at. 4A, you always got Reedsville, Brevard. Another team in your area that people are attuned to is East Duplin. I think East Duplin's going to come on strong, and Eastern Wayne.
Interesting
and
stuff.
Just kind of. Yeah, and just kind of capturing it. I know down there in the east, Northeastern, James Keenan, look for big years from them. And then in 2A, Tarboro. Tarboro, I think they'll just continue their dominance. I think Tarborough's still going to be the deal. And 1A, who knows? I mean, there's going to be some teams competing for the 1A championship that might have 3 or 4 wins because 1A's only got just a handful of teams competing.
Wow. Death, taxes, and Tarboro. That's
yeah. There you go.
Doesn't matter where you put them. They're always going to compete. It's really wild. Chris, I hope you have a great summer. I'm sure we'll talk to you as we get a little closer to the start of the season. And if there's anything we can do ever, let us know. A reminder, folks, to go to CarolinaPreps.com. A lot of premium, top-notch content there. Well worth your time and investment. Chris, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, P-Man.
There he goes, the great Chris Hughs with us here. All right, let's hit a break, Dom, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the program for this Friday and get you set for the weekend and tell you about what we got in store next week. It is the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game and the IBX Media app.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
It's time to bring on the savings at Greenville Toyota with huge discounts on over 125 new Toyotas, like a Camry $269 a month or RAV4 $339 a month. Now bring yourself to Greenville Toyota and save.
When a place is as special as this, you don't want to change a thing. You simply want to enjoy it, just as it is. That was our inspiration behind Bow Coast West, our newest community in Beaufort, North Carolina. Embrace all that we love about this very special place and make it easy for families to enjoy all that this coastal lifestyle has to offer. Be inspired. Bow Coast West.
At Parker's Barbecue, our family has been serving your family for 3 generations.
For that, we say thank you. Blessing families every Thursday. Kids eat free all day. That's the Parker's way.
Legendary food served from our 3 locations. Always quick, always delicious. That's the Parker's way.
At Parker's, our mission is to impact our customers through Christ-like service in a way that feeds them both physically and spiritually. That is the Parker's way.
Need to insure a boat in Edenton, a business in Elizabeth City, a car in Greenville? How about a farm truck in Mount Olive or a home on the Outer Banks? Weatherly Insurance Agency, an independent insurance agency with 6 locations in Eastern North Carolina, is here to help. Weatherly Insurance Agency has agents you can get to know because they're your neighbors and live in your town. Call today, 888-OBX-2-IBX, or on the web at weatherlyinsurance.com. From the Outer Banks to the Inner Banks, Weatherly Insurance has you covered.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Get ready, because it's time to bring on the savings at Greenville Toyota. Get huge discounts on over 125 new Toyotas, like a Corolla, $239 a month, or Tacoma, $349 a month. Bring on the savings today at Greenville Toyota.
Mark your calendar for the 3rd Annual Mid-Atlantic Hunting and Fishing Expo presented by Phelps Chevrolet, coming to the Greenville Convention Center on our new date, January 31st and February 1st. Enjoy a weekend full of free events, hunting and fishing seminars, and vendors featuring the very best in hunting equipment and fishing tackle. Free events include a mountain trout pond, an offshore fishing experience, an archery lane, and a duck blind interactive hunt. All this and more at the 3rd Annual Mid-Atlantic Hunting and Fishing Expo presented by Phelps Chevrolet. Plan to attend.
And now, the stunning conclusion.
Why is everyone screaming?
On 94.3 The Game.
All righty, Patrick Johnson Show wrapping up for this Friday. Thanks to Jake Jacobs. Thanks to Chris Hughs for being on with us here. Hey, I want to give a shout-out really quick. Congrats to Cheyenne Forbes from Aiden Grifton, softball player, flag football player who played for our buddy Paul Cornwell. Heck of a quarterback. She is committed to play softball at Chowan for the great Junior Bailey. So congratulations to Coach Bailey and to Cheyenne Forbes from AG for making it there. We got Dom Kasulki here. Dom, one thing I wanted to mention to you.
I think we're going to lose.
Before we say goodbye, and you brought it to us in your update. It actually broke yesterday right when we went off the air.
Mm-hmm.
That was Aaron Rodgers is signed with Pittsburgh, and I guess everybody thought this was going to happen, and it kind of quieted down, and then boom, it happens. Rodgers in the AFC North. I don't know about that.
I don't think there was any other spot he was going to play, so it was retire.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if he can handle it.
Oh,
I don't know if he can handle it.
I don't think he can, especially with Pickens being gone now. I mean, you have DK Metcalf as your wide receiver 1, so you have a deep ball, big, it's strong and jumping, leaping grabs all over the place in DK. But other than that, I really don't know what you're going to work with.
For Pittsburgh, a franchise that is, had stability, only 3 coaches in their all-time history, Tomlinson has been able to survive there despite some real issues in recent years, with the win-loss record and early exits and what have you. They don't like distraction. They're bringing in an enormous distraction.
I mean, I guess it's that or Will Howard. Pick your poison. What are you going to do? You want to try and go win some games? You have an elite defense. You want to at least maybe resurface MVP Rodgers
somehow,
or at least something from it.
Something to happen.
Yeah. I guess that's what you're hoping
All
for.
All right. I've got I'm under the weather. I'm going to go rehab and try to get better before the start of next week. Dom will be back with us Monday. I'm excited about that.
I
Dom
will.
Be
Back-to-back
here.
shows.
Back-to-back shows. Shane, so Dom's mom will be listening. That's good. Shane Winkler will be with us on Monday as well. ECU softball coach will be with us in the studio. Looking forward to that. And again, I hope you have a tremendous weekend, everybody. It's a safe one for you. We'll have Big Rock coverage on Talk 96.3 and Talk 103.7 next week. And also, we'll be broadcasting live from the King Mackerels near the Morehead City waterfront, or on the Morehead City waterfront near Big Rock Landing on Tuesday. But back in the studio Monday for more of the Patrick Johnson Show, and I'll be hosting Talk of the Town, of course, Monday and Tuesday with Benny Hardy. Hey, have a great rest of your weekend, and make it a safe one. Be good, and we'll see you on Monday for more here on 94.3 The Game of the PJ Show.